effective that you go to a breakout session. Well, that doesn't sound that cool to me. I don't think I'm going to go to that one. I'm going to go look at this other stuff. Without advocacy, we have nothing, absolutely nothing. So, therefore, I think we need to find out if all our members are voting. We need to find out if and do they follow through after they vote? Do people actually contact their representatives on issues? Do they know what bills are going through? That is what advocacy is about. And I happen to know two really great advocates from Wisconsin that just got the Die Hard Award, and they've been to jail for justice. They've done things, they've changed laws, they've made things happen. And one has just left the Council on Physical Disabilities, and the other is the chair and has been the chair for a long time. And they have the ear of the governor, and the governor does kind of respond to what they say. So it's getting ourselves noticed. And if the people that are involved in independent living aren't advocates themselves, how are they supposed to teach advocacy to the people that they serve? So that's just my take on it. I've been an advocate in various ways throughout my life, so um that's how I look at it. I'll just wait and see who's going to respond to that.
So this is Brooke. I was going to respond.
All right.
Um, so when you first said that you presented at a conference and that that should be the forefront of all conferences, I want to ask you, are you submitting a workshop proposal to all of the conferences on that topic?
Well, I'm thinking about what's coming up. I have on some of the smaller conferences in my area, I've done some I don't do a lot of I haven't done a national conference. I've done some statewide and regional. So we have caregiver conferences, and I we did a tag team on advocacy. One person did federal, the next I did state, and then someone did local. And I don't think people really understand who they're supposed to be contacting. They get their representatives kind of mixed up, They get their state issues and their federal issues mixed up. Who am I supposed to connect with when this occurs? Whether it's access to maybe accessible parking or whatever the issue may be. Is it municipal? Is it state? Do I have to go over somebody's head? And the one thing that I was told this morning by my friend that's on the governor's council is he said that, if you don't vote, which is the number one thing, do you vote? If you don't vote and you contact your congress people, they just throw it out because they don't have to worry about your vote. You're already telling them that they look at the voter rolls. Are you there? And if you're not there, your concern doesn't matter to them.
Well, I would encourage you to branch out beyond your state and region. There are three national conferences in the IL world that I participate in every year. And there is usually a breakout type session around advocacy. Um, there was actually a panel at the April conference with a bunch of folks from Wisconsin, right, Alyssa? Help me. And how they all work together.
Okay.
Was it Wisconsin?
Yeah, it was. It
Okay.
was Tyler Wilcox and several
And
folks.
centers and someone from like human services, like they all came together um, and did a panel general session. But I mean, I agree. Like a lot of people do get confused. And I always say it's more than just voting. Yes, vote. Like, please vote. But you also have to develop a relationship with whoever it is you're voting for. Um, and you can't wait until they're in session to develop that relationship. Whether you have a 45-day session or a 6-month session, or I don't really know how long everybody's sessions are. Um, I've been in a couple of states, and those are a couple of time frame references. But if you wait until those folks are at the Capitol, they're drinking from a fire hose for however many days they're at the Capitol, whether it's a month and a half or 6 months, it doesn't matter. The bills are coming and they don't have the bandwidth. Nobody has the bandwidth to be able to educate themselves about all of those issues. And so it's developing relationships with those folks when they're not at the Capitol, whether it's at, the grocery store in the produce section, or if you're most towns nowadays, I think most towns, cities, whatever, they have some type of gathering throughout the year, whether it's, a Founders Day parade or you know, pick a whatever they celebrate. Um, there's some kind of gathering in most towns. It's getting to know them there. It's developing that relationship. So whenever they are during the session and they have a question that you become the expert and they reach out to you. So it's a two-way communication instead of just you always calling them when you have an issue. I mean, I suggest to folks in my state, send them a holiday card. Like whatever holiday. I'm not, trying to say it has to be a Christmas card. Most people acknowledge that there's a new year. That's not, you know, religiously connected to anything. The year changes every year. So you can just say, Happy New Year, and educate them throughout the year, get to know them, just like develop that relationship. Because then when you do have issues, this is more on a state level. You can do it on a federal level. You could do it on a local level. I just really always try to push it on a state level because the state laws, I feel you can have the largest impact. Um, you can have a real large impact in your local community as well, your city councils and things of that nature. Um, but oftentimes those policies are more focused on just your town or your city or your local environment, whereas a lot of the state laws are going to impact, the whole state. And I also work for the statewide independent living council, so I'm supposed to have this statewide picture. But I can tell you in my experience, people don't do that. I could say it all day, every day, in every meeting I ever go to. There are people who don't know who their representative, state senator, they don't know. They might have voted for somebody yesterday and they still don't know. And they definitely don't have a relationship with them. And so it's developing those relationships. And I don't know how, I guess I somewhat do. I was going to say, I don't know how to teach relationship skills, but I guess I kind of do. And I think that that's where we have to start because if you wait until the session starts, it's too late. And if you wait until, election night, it's way too late. And so, I mean, I probably won't make any friends. I did not vote for any Republicans during this election, but there has been a point in my life where I had a relationship with a state representative who was a Republican, who I got as much done. I lived in a red state, and that was the way you got things done was by developing relationships with the Republican Party, with those elected officials that were part of the Republican Party, participating in their caucus meetings and things of that nature. Um, this was years ago, and they've gotten a little bit more, uh, I don't know what the word is that I even want to use. You can fill in the blank. They've gotten a little bit more, um,
But that's not
no,
everybody.
and it's
That's the thing is, and I
developing.
like what you're saying because that's another thing that I was taught by my mentors is that don't assume that this party or that party is going to make things work. It takes both, otherwise nothing's going to pass. So you have to work on the opposite side of the aisle. And if your person didn't win, it's almost more fun to kind of dig the other person a little bit too, to start saying, "Hey, are you interested in my issue? If not, I'm gonna, I do a radio show. I could kind of throw some stuff out there once in a while and throw some digs out at people. Dedicate nasty songs to people that are nasty. There's some good ones out there for that. I just did a Voices of the People show on Sunday,
Oh,
which went from like Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash to Frank Zappa. So, you just pick out these issues and let somebody else speak for you. But anyway, the thing is that, yeah, I think that sometimes when somebody's candidate doesn't win, they just say, oh, that other person isn't gonna, there's no way for you to know if that person, whether they're red or blue, maybe has somebody in their family that has a disability. Maybe their neighbor has a disability. You never assume because you bring it to them and then you read them from there. Because if you avoid approaching somebody just because of party, you're already losing. And another thing that I would say is that with the state stuff, I agree with you. And what used to happen here in Wisconsin is, see, things have changed. Like you said, things have changed severely. We used to have town halls, and I used to attend them regularly. And all of a sudden, they just quit because they don't have to anymore. They do not have to do that. They sneak into town, call the people from their party, and then they're gone. And then you find out they were here in the paper like a couple of days later. That's how things are run now. So they're not as accessible as they previously were. Because I remember when we had Senator Russ Feingold way back, probably close to 20 years ago, he went to all 72 of our counties and did a town hall, and he invited everybody. It wasn't like, oh, well, I only want Democrats to be here so I could get a photo op. It was like he came to find out what the people feel. And we are kind of, I think money has taken us out of we're not in the game anymore. But one thing that we're considering for, we do caregiver conferences for, I'm a independent living specialist for 4 counties here in northern Wisconsin, severely rural and growing in age severely because we live in a beautiful place and it's a great retirement place, and people don't realize there's services that they left behind when they left the city to come to the woods. And that's the bulk of the people I serve are people like 55 on up. I don't see many people, rural communities are extremely different, but they used to actually come here and now they don't. So our power is going to be in working together on a bill that's coming in. If a bill's coming in, we need to know that the bill is there. If I got something from April that said, hey, please support Bill SB, this, whatever number it is, and AB, this one, or, I'm going to look at it. And if I'm calling in, and I was told this by a state rep, a state senator, she said, hey, if I get 5 calls on one subject, I start paying attention. So you mean like out of these thousands and thousands of constituents, we can't get 5 calls? It's kind of ridiculous. Somewhere we are not playing this game to win. We're just kind of working on the edges. And I think we need to ratchet up our advocacy severely. Otherwise, as you did mention, we might start losing some of the gains we got in the past.
Thanks, Don. This is Alyssa. Um, and I agree. One thing I would say is we do tend to be a reactive society as opposed to a proactive
yeah.
society. So my question for this committee would be, what would a proactive advocacy campaign look like? Or how do we begin to put in motion those steps, like Don was just talking about. There's this X bill coming up, and that goes out to the April membership. That's a very intentional, strategic committee priority. That will take some heavy lifting, because you're going to have, dedicated manpower, woman power, looking, kind of constantly monitoring bills and proposed bills that are coming out. But if this committee were to have, some teeth and some, tangible priority steps, what would that look like? How do we start building that, so that we're not reacting at the end, you know, at the end, instead of, being proactive all year long with education and advocacy.
Hi, this is Lauren Baker. I'm from Disability Network of Eastern Michigan. We cover 7 counties, Oakland, Macomb, and then the Thumb. So I've been our public policy specialist for 12 years. And we've recently acquired 5 additional counties in the Thumb in the state of Michigan. That used to just be Oakland and Macomb. And we have 15 sills throughout the state. And I have a total of 49 legislators, and I attend their coffee hours. Usually they have coffee hours on a Monday or a Friday, and they're in session at our state capitol in Lansing, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But what I do after every election, I will send an email, I'll mail a letter introducing myself, letting them know if any of their constituents have a disability, that we're a resource for them. And I've really developed some really good relationships with all of our legislators. We host a legislative breakfast, and I've had about 10 to 15 legislators attend. I do a lot of transportation advocacy. But what I find is the more they see me in person, my schedule, I'm pretty much dedicated to attending anything policy related. So I bring all of our flyers for the programs our Center for Independent Living offers. And then the legislators are so excited because they aren't an expert in every area. So if anyone has a disability, they know, oh, there's Lauren, we can turn to our center. So when there are bills that we are looking for support statewide, I usually get a response, an email response, or a call from their legislative director. So I really like the idea of being proactive, so they know who you are. And then when you do have a bill that you are looking for support, it's easier that way, since they already know who you are. But any national issues or federal issues, I would love to be a part to advocate for from Michigan to help out. So I'm glad that I'm a member of this April committee.
Thanks, Lauren. That was helpful. I'm just thinking, boy, April, I wish we could find some grant funding to hire a part-time advocate policy person. That would probably be super helpful. Uh, so yeah, that's good to know. And I think we should continue to stay on this track of taking this committee to the next level, and have being very intentional about our steps moving forward, because I do think that as a national organization, we come in with weight. We are a collective body of people working in and advocating for people with disabilities, specifically in rural communities. And a lot of work needs to be done specifically in rural communities. Maybe even if it's just bridging the divide, that, we have more in common than we don't. So I would love to see us start being very intentional about next steps. And I would love to hear what everyone else thinks about that. Don.
I'm wondering, being that I'm at a lower level than some of you are, I'm an independent living specialist. I go see the people, but I really have that background in advocacy and I try to teach people that as best I can. Do we get, what's our connection? What's April's connection with Nickel? I mean, who's the one that, because I went to this presentation in our county and they have it's called GWAR, it's Greater Wisconsin Aging Advocacy Resource. And they were the person that did the presentation was talking about increasing the asset amount on Social Security to $10,000. And there were two bills that were active and they just fizzled. Now that the Congress changes, they're going to be gone. And hopefully somebody will pick them up again. But if we knew that those existed previously, we could have advocated for them. I had no idea that they were out there. So I guess it's does Nickel monitor what's going on? Somebody in the advocacy national networks got to have a clue. And are they keeping it to themselves? Or, it makes me wonder how we can do better at communicating as far as that goes, national issues.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, go ahead, Adelaide.
So Don is absolutely correct. There are a couple of bills out there, and these are big pushes right now in terms of the asset limits on SSI and SSDI. It is U.S. House Bill 5408 and U.S. Senate Bill 2767. The SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act. And it would do away with the savings penalty as well as raise the asset limits to 10,000 for individuals and 20,000 for married couples. And so over in the House, it's sponsored right now by Representative Brian Higgins out of New York. And he only was able to get one co-sponsor, and it got sent to the House Ways and Means Committee, which I think it's still there. And then over in the Senate, and Senator Brown is going to be gone, unfortunately. Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio was sponsoring the Senate version of that bill. So, and then there's also a U.S. House Bill 6640, the Marriage Equality for Disabled Adults Act, sponsored by Representative Panetta out of California. And he had one co-sponsor on that piece of legislation. And these two pieces only got introduced in the House. The Senate never even got word that they were being introduced, I don't think. And then just recently, the U.S. House Bill 7055 was introduced, eliminating the marriage penalty in SSI. Would amend Title 16 of the Social Security Act to keep supplemental security income benefits from being reduced just simply because somebody with a disability wants to get married. It is fun, and again, only got introduced in the House. It was sponsored by Representative David Valdeo out of California. And he introduced it back on the 18th of January of this year. Had 5 co-sponsors, and it got sent to the House Ways and Means Committee, and I don't think it ever came out. So, but one bill that has come out in recent months is the House Bill 2706, and the Senate legislation is Senate Bill 1183, and those are the Charlotte Woodward Organ Transplant Disability Discrimination Prevention Act, sponsored over in the House by Republican Representative Kat Cammack of Florida, and over in the Senate by Senator Rubio. So, and Senator Rubio had 9 original co-sponsors on that legislation, and it got sent to the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. And these bills are actually, both of them are awaiting final votes in their respective House chambers, in their respective congressional chambers. So, and yes, I've written to my representative and my 2 senators about this. So, over the last year, maybe year and a half, so several times. So, especially more in recent months with Senator Katie Britt taking over for Senator Shelby. And of course, she formerly worked for Senator Shelby. So, she kind of knew what to do. And I hate to see things not going right with, I hate that Senator Casey's campaign is struggling here at the end, because he has been such a strong supporter of people with disabilities over the years, and then the world of disability advocacy is going to lose a huge supporter over in the House, as Kathy McMorris Rogers is set to retire at the end of December. So, and she came in years ago, but she ran and has worked on disability issues, Kathy McMorris Rogers, mainly on behalf of her son, who was born with Down syndrome. So, that's kind of where we are. That Charlotte Woodward bill, and Charlotte Woodward actually works as an advocate with the National Down Syndrome Society, and has advocated for these bills for about 3 years now, working with Representative Cammack down in Florida, over in the House, to get it to where it is now in terms of waiting for final passage. Same thing, she, I'm sure, called and has written to Senator Rubio, despite despite the fact that their main office, and she works as an chief advocate for the National Down Syndrome Society, Charlotte does. And so that's kind of, like I say, where we are. And I work on advocacy issues with virtually with 2 nonprofit organizations up in the Washington State area. So we are advocating right now for a number of pieces of legislation dealing with the disability issues. So, and back in August, I actually graduated from the Alabama Partners in Policy Making classes. So, and that has taken my advocacy to new heights. And even this year here in Alabama, we saw a number of bills, very strong support from the disability community here. One was the Colby Act, which dealt with supported decision making. Another one was Exton's Law, which made it illegal here in Alabama for hospitals to turn away folks that needed organ transplants. So, and sadly, we here in Alabama earlier this year saw Alabama Senate Bill 1 passed and signed, and that piece of legislation now it's thankfully being blocked. But what that law said was that people with disabilities could not, especially those that either could not read or write or were blind or had low vision or maybe even had hearing disabilities, could not ask for help filling out their absentee ballot application or the affidavit envelope, and even figuring out how to correctly get the envelopes mailed, because there are several of them that go with the application. So the absentee ballot application, but thankfully a federal judge came in and blocked that under Section 208 of the Federal Voting Rights Act. So those folks were able to ask for help thanks to the advocacy of several disability organizations here, as well as the League of Women Voters. So.
Thanks, Adelaide. That was super helpful. And I'm always thankful when you send stuff to April for the legislative things, be it transportation or advocacy. It is very helpful. And I agree with what Brooke just put in the chat, that the national IL organizations need to come together and build a coalition to get the information out and make sure that we are educating our folks.
Yeah, one of the things that's going on here in Alabama as well, the IL Center in Birmingham at Disability Rights and Resources is in the progress right now of in the process of building a home on their property in Birmingham to both give out information on independent living issues, as well as to train folks how to work with folks that need IL services. So that's kind of what we've got going on here. And Alabama is going to try this coming legislative session, which starts in February, to pass an Alabama version of the Federal Voting Rights Act. So we'll see how far it gets once it's sent to committee, which is where we've kind of had problems. And I'm even having problems right now, even trying to get a good relationship started with my state senator down in Montgomery, April Weaver, and she has been hard to pin. She was hard to pin down before when she was over in the Alabama House to do anything. So, but even trying to get a relationship started with her via email is tough. So, but anyway, that's kind of where I am. And I actually go to church with my state representative, Gary Palmer, my U.S. representative, rather, Gary Palmer. So I need to start talking to him about some of this, but I kind of feel like almost like church is not exactly the place to do that in terms of some of this federal legislation.
Get him in the parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Our church campus is expansive.
Oh,
And
gotta figure out what car he drives. You can just go position yourself by it.
yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is we've had some issues come up just in the last couple of months, and the church has had to lock down parts of the facility. And so there are only, my brother sings in the choir, and there are only certain places now he sings in the adult choir, and there are only certain places now where we can drop him off to make sure he gets to the choir on Sunday mornings. So and my mom has that same issue on Wednesday nights when she drops him off for choir practice. So
So building on a couple of things that are in the chat, I did take notes on all of the bills that you referenced, Adelaide, and I tried to get them in the chat because Herschel had requested them. I should stop covering my mouth in case he's lip reading as well. I don't know if I have good lighting though. Some folks have shared some stuff from Nickel, and they do an annual legislative priority guide. It usually comes out in the mid to late spring ahead of their annual conference that takes place in July. But I just the I don't need the country is already so divided that even within the IL community, like this is our opportunity to come together. Like I, so I'm here today at April's Advocacy Committee. And yesterday I went to Nasilk's Advocacy Committee. And so it's like, and it's exhausting. And there's 10 people at each committee and I'm the only one who was at yesterday's. So there's not a lot of overlap, but like we could have 15 people instead of 10. Um, and I know that Nickel, they have a few different committees that work on different priorities of advocacy. April also is trying to get a transportation advocacy committee up and running. Um, we're also siloed, and at the end of the day, I think we all want the same thing. So how do we come together and all get along and unite? Because I think we would be stronger if we could all be together.
Is there a reason why April and Nickel don't seem to have a relationship? Because I don't think Don's question was ever addressed on what is the relationship. And I'm a bit
Oh,
confused because I
sorry.
thought you guys did have a relationship from what I've heard on the Nickel side, but now it's sounding like on the April side, that's not the case.
This is Alyssa. I would not say that at all. We coordinate with Nickel. We do have a relationship with Nickel. I think just I would say probably in the last several months, probably since early summer, we both have been entrenched in some grant writing for for the TNTA grant. But yeah, no, we had several Nickel folks at the April conference and vice versa. We always attend each other's conferences. And can more coordination happen? Absolutely. Especially if we're going to be looking, you know, through this lens of advocacy as it pertains to the elections and legislation, I think that we need to beef up that cooperation. Um, Don, go ahead. Your hand
Oh,
was
I can put my hand down. Sorry.
Okay.
got it.
You can put yours down for now, but I'm sure you'll be back. Um, yeah, if I look at it from, all right, I'm an independent living specialist. I'm at the low end of all this. But what could I do? If I got the information, I get it on our Facebook. I would get it out in the newspapers because I write articles for like 3 or 4 newspapers in the different counties I serve. And I could get it to my consumers. And if once we get the consumers something that's solid, call your congressman for Bill XYZ and give them the contact information, make it easy for them, because then it comes from nickel, April, whatever, wherever it starts. But we have to work as a well-oiled machine or we're going to fail. That this information should be out there. I sometimes, I've been here I'm going on 6 years, and sometimes I've been just shocked that we don't get information on any bills that are coming in. And just think, if there's 8 independent living centers in Wisconsin and all 8 are got all their workers calling on this bill, calling their representatives and their senators, and then we move it that way. We can't move things if we're, like you say, siloed. And I see that even in my state. And I did actually, for the conference I had mentioned previously, I did some feedback for the planning, and I said, well, do assigned seatings, get people out of their bubble where they're talking. You go to a conference and it's like, I know so and so, so I'm going to sit by them. No, talk to people you don't know, and then have that advocacy presentation so that it's made it interactive, where this should be the keynote. This is the most important thing, and this is how we make it move. What are your suggestions at this little table? Give them a little bit of work to do, and then come back and ask them, well, what was your solution to this? We need to do that more. We need to get to where people are excited about it. Either that or we got to really get adapt out there and be stomping on the Capitol. That's, and it's hard where I'm at. Like I said, I got probably, out of 4,000 square miles that I cover, there's only about, I don't know, maybe 70,000 people. So everybody's really spread out, but we have communication, we have the internet, we have ways of getting in touch with people. We have our consumer lists. Could we send something out to our consumers on this level after it comes down the pike? And could you imagine them getting flooded in Washington with all kinds of people with disabilities calling on a bill? They'll pass the damn thing. They will just get tired of being annoyed. So we need to be annoying. We need to be like Adapt. We got to look back at our history. What gave us our jobs now? We wouldn't have jobs if not for the people that Wade Blank and everybody else, that Judy Human, all the people that we respect that helped to make this what it is. We would not be employed if they didn't put their asses on the line. So we got to think about how we can engage and at least get people a little bit more fired up, because it's their lives that are on the line. Every piece of legislation has their life on it. So we should be looking at it that way.
Do you
Thanks.
remember when Nickel used to send out their action alerts about different federal legislation that was coming up, and they would say, action alert, make sure that you call your congressman and say, so that happened like a couple years ago. So it seems like there may be some avenues that you don't have, whether it's nickel, ACL, but those things do come out there. Now, as far as April, I really haven't seen many, but that could be something we can implement because right now nickel is going through their own shift and that's why they haven't sent action alerts in a while. But that was something that I remember receiving for many years about different bills that would come up this even outside of the nickel conference. It's like, hey, this is coming up, they're about to vote on it, or this is a topic that's going to directly affect us, call to your legislators. They would even give us like a script or a template that you can use to mail out, and very easy, just put your name, put your organization or whatnot, and that was really helpful. So I could see either April doing something like that again, or because Nickel has the staff that's actually dedicated to that, if they ever bring it back up, being more involved as far as like, hey, in April, Nickel's sending this out, be prepared. Or you guys can send the same thing out so that both parties, because I don't think everybody who's in April is a part of Nickel and vice versa. This is kind of what I'm getting at. Can get that same information and be on the same space, I guess, to know what's going on. Because like from what I'm hearing from you, Don, maybe that stuff wasn't coming to your attention, but it's out there. So it's just not as visible as it was in the past, which I'm hoping that we can make it more visible in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Leland. This is Alyssa. That's true. And just as we're coming up on the hour and being mindful of our ASL interpreters' time, just I want to say a couple things. One, we have in very recent past seen the disability movement stop the overturning of the Affordable Care Act when it came down to it. People were right back there at the Capitol. They were being arrested. They were chaining themselves to rooms and refusing to leave. So we do have the power, and that historically we have shown it. And the other thing I would say just really quickly is, when I first started at April, I used to, as a lowly administrative assistant, I was the one responsible for faxing all of the various, letters of support or opposition when we had the large, transportation voucher project. Any, the New Freedom Initiative and Safety Lou, all the transportation stuff that was coming about, we were, April was very active in sending action alerts. So I think that, yes, we need to get back to that because we do have power and we should not forget that. We have just a couple minutes left. Does anyone have anything closing before we end for the day? And we have a lot to work on now.
Well,
Yeah, for
I
those of you
just,
that
oh, okay. Go ahead, Adelaide.
for those of you that attend the stakeholder calls with the Partnership for Inclusive Disaster Strategies, they recently sent out a piece saying that they were going to be, at least for the weekends, suspending those calls until after the holidays are over, because normally the holidays are their most lowly attended calls. So they won't do it on Saturday and Sundays for right now, just Monday through Friday.
Right.
So
Okay. We are almost at the top of the hour. If you can be quick, Don, if you have any
Oh,
your
I
final
think
thought.
that I just love to see ACL. If it's going through nickel and ACL, April, it should all be together. And that what Leland was talking about with those nickel advocacy, please, follow through with that. That is the way to do it. I like that idea, and I think it would be a winner. And it's easy. It's easy for our consumers to do it, and the easier we make it for them, the more likely they'll be to act on it.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, we will take these these action items that we've outlined here today, and we will start moving forward with building a plan. Super thankful for everyone's dialogue today and input, and stay tuned. I like where this is going. And thank you so much to our interpreter, and we will see you all next month.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.